Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm Jackie DeGarmo, Institute Director, and I'm so pleased to welcome you to the 2013 ICF Institute Global Symposium. You're going to have an opportunity this morning to get a much better feel for the scope and the work of the Intelligent Community Forum, our global think tank, when we hear from its co-founder, Lou Zaccarello, in just a few moments. But for now, let's just understand that this organization is focused on recognizing and supporting and advising communities as they make the transition to the knowledge economy. The goal is simple: re-energize communities for the 21st century, to keep our children home, to enhance our quality of life, to protect our values, to help us take care of each other. The Institute here at Walsh was established as an outreach of the Intelligent Community Forum, and we have three goals. First, we want to support and teach the principles of the movement and become a regional resource for our greater communities. We want to create relationships with communities around the world that will help us to inspire and enrich regional business, academic, and community connections. And finally, our signature program here in our institute will be to investigate new models for the preparation of educators. Today's symposium, like last year's, is designed as a town hall meeting of a diverse range of multidisciplinary professionals and students. The mix is intentional. We want everyone at the table for these conversations. We're so pleased to have members of our International Board of Advisors who have proven their commitment by their travel to Ohio for this event, and those who are able to join us this morning. I'm going to ask them to stand if you would hold your applause. Shirley Fenton, Business Development Director, Center for Bioengineering and Biotechnology and Research, Associate Computer Systems Group, University of Waterloo, Vice President and Director, National Institutes of Health Informatics. Suvi Linden, former Finland Minister of Communications and Culture and member of the United Nations Broadband Commission. Christina Werner, Director, Intelligent Communities at Waterfront, Toronto, and faculty, University of Windsor. Please welcome our advisory. Also traveling a great distance to discuss our institute and represent emerging institutes, please welcome Jussi Hakama, Oulu University of Applied Sciences, Finland, Mika Rantakoko, University of Oulu, Finland, and Uzo Udemba, CEO, Udemba Group, Trend Media City, Lagos, Nigeria. And here to connect and collaborate on very real solutions to their vision for the communities of northern Uganda, please welcome Father Gino Mwaka, Vice Chancellor, and Patrick Akumo Omoni, Finance and Development Consultant and Council Chair, Archdiocese of Gulu. And from his office 100 yards away on a campus where he easily spends 80 hours a week, please welcome the President of Walsh University, Mr. Richard Gisson. Our theme this year, Connecting by Design, is a recognition that transitioning to the knowledge economy is an urgent, human-centered design problem that starts with curiosity, inquiry, and empathy. We will hear human stories of challenge and achievement as we consider ways to leverage technology to close the gaps in educational achievement and to close the gaps in access and the critical need of complete inclusivity as our communities evolve. They will change, they are changing, and we can't expect to navigate these changes safely or to sustain a healthy economy for our children without intelligent design. We're honored to have with us this morning the man whose ideas and passion got us here today, the co-founder of the Intelligent Community Forum. Please welcome Lou Zaccarello.
Well, good morning, everyone, and it's good to see some of you again, and welcome to the symposium. I want to thank, first of all, Walsh University for, especially President Jusson, for pulling me off the streets of New York a few years ago, dragging me back to Ohio, and making my life even grander than it is. So I thank you very much for hosting this vision that we all share. I also want to thank Jackie DeGarmo, without whom none of this would have taken place. When you have an idea, it's one thing, but when you have someone who understands the idea and can execute on the vision, then you have something substantial that can be shared with the rest of the world. And she is the one who is doing that connecting, that sharing. So, Jackie, thank you so much for all your hard work. And I know there's not enough coffee in the world to get through the fatigue that you'll have, but it's all been worth it. I'm not going to speak very long today. Many of you heard me last night, and many of you have heard me many times. But this is for the educators and the very special people today who are thinking about something very critical to communities. Let me just back up, though. I'm going to take you to upstate New York many, many years ago when an immigrant railroad worker, a foreman named Salvatore Colatarci, would come home at night after working a full day as the foreman on the railroad, and he would come back to his little home on Schuler Street near the tracks. You could always hear the whistles. And he'd look around, get a glass of wine, look at my grandmother, look at his children, look at his grandchildren, and he would look up to God, and he would say, "Non ci posto migliore più della mia casa," which meant very simply, there's no place like home. You saw those words on the screen flash forward. If you want to understand what we think about at the Intelligent Community Forum, it's a very, very simple mission. To take what my grandfather said and to allow anyone who feels that way to enjoy their place, because there is no place like home. He also said something to me when I asked him, how do you get along with the world? How do you get things accomplished? Because he was, a very, very uneducated immigrant who did very well with the railroad. And he said very simply two things. He said, make sure you give them a lot of wine, which you would expect. But he said two words, just connect. He said, just connect. Connect with people. Understand them, be patient with them, and communicate with them. And I've taken those words, and when we look at what's going to take place today, when we break it all down, when we talk about education, when we talk about the way we communicate in communities to build businesses, to build better governments, to build better academic sectors, all we're talking about is connecting, being patient with our message, being patient with the other as they receive that message. We're going to learn a lot of things today. We're going to learn about the impact of education on community. We're going to learn about how the other 3 billion people in the world are being connected to and what that bodes for people who want to stay home and who no longer want to be economic refugees moving to cities, moving to places where they don't really want to be. It is a profound movement, and we have a lot of fun at ICF, but at the end of the day, our work is very serious. Communities are at the essence of the revival of the human spirit, and they will either move toward the light or they will collapse into darkness. Those are the stakes that we are talking about today. And while those may seem like grim propositions, I'm a man of faith, as I think many of us are in this room. We know who wins. We know where the light is. So today, I'm just delighted that we've got Trung Lee and Sunit Singh and Patrick Murphy and all of these thinkers to help guide us toward the light, to give us new ways to think in a nonlinear way about that very essential component of our community education. So I really thank all of you for coming out today on such a warm, beautiful day here in Ohio, but it will be beautiful inside. So I hope you enjoy this as much as I do, and God bless you.
And last night we spent honoring the community that was selected by the Intelligent Community Forum as the 2013 Intelligent Community of the Year. And those delegates are with us this morning again, so I want to make sure you recognize we have with us Madam Deputy Secretary Ching Chi Leo from Taishan City, Taiwan. Okay. So let's get started. Trung Lee, a friend of Walsh University, as the lead designer of an exciting global learning center that will anchor this university campus very soon. A key leader for Canon Design's education group, Trung Lee is a widely recognized advocate for incorporating multiple intelligences and learning styles in the design of educational environments. During his 20-year career, he has created spaces encouraging student inquiry and imagination and what it means to be part of a global community. His design philosophy has yielded awards from the Chicago and national chapters of the American Institute of Architects and has been featured in Architectural Record, Contract Design, and Edutopia. Lee is a frequent speaker at national and international education and design conferences, and his collaboration with Bruce Mao resulted in the publication The Third Teacher, a cabinet of wonders on how design can transform the ecology of learning. Lee also leads the Third Teacher Plus, an education design consultancy within the firm's ideas-based practice, assisting learning communities to better serve 21st century learners. Today, he invites us along on his new journey, a fascinating and inclusive exploration of the role of design thinking in the future of teaching and learning. Wonder by Design. Please welcome Trung Lee.
Good morning, everyone. Well, thank you for the introduction, Lou, and thank you, President Richardson, for having me here. What I'm hoping today, as I'm humbly here, is maybe not to show you the light, but to possibly ask you to wonder about the light. So that's what I'm hoping. So I'm setting a low expectation for myself a little bit. So my career started out wonderfully as an architect, but about 7 years ago, I was given this incredible commission to redesign all secondary school in the Cayman Islands. Cayman Islands is a small little country, but I quickly found out it was no longer about an architectural project when the CEO came in and said that we have two choices. Either we're building large prisons or we have to reinvent our educational system. I was teamed up with this brilliant educator from the UK, Stephen Heppel, and basically just challenged me to reconceive the learning environment and almost challenge the way that we actually been designing school for the last 200 years. Well, that challenge led us to the collaboration with Bruce Mao that ended up in this publication called The Third Teacher, which literally is a means for me to launch The Third Teacher Plus, in which there was a point where I decided that me as an architect was no longer enough to tackle this idea of reinvent learning in the way that the conversation was happening around the world. So we're starting this new project, and we like the idea that this project takes on the metaphor of the edge effect. The edge effect is really two biological systems that somehow overlap each other. Right? It rubs up against each other, overlap each other. But in that overlap is where we find the most diverse new form of life and diversity and solutions. And so what we're thinking is that this project that we're on, this Wondering project, is about finding all these edge effects. We like to explore the idea of complexity and simple rules. I know that we're dealing with just incredible amount of complexity. But if we look at this murmuration, this is thousands and thousands of startling in total synchronization with each other, right? They're able to actually know in the moment what your neighbor is doing. It's on this tip of transformation all the time. And it's amazing is as the system gets more complex, it tends to operate with really simple rules. So we also like the idea that we're always in this tension between two things. And this is a great quote by Paulo Freire that kind of just say human existence is about these two tensions, good and evil. And when I saw this this photograph, this is a building in Syria that's completely was filled with bullets, but you can also tell that behind there is an incredible picture, a painting of Clint the Kiss. So these two overlapping good and evil is really the state of our existence, and we just have to really be comfortable with that tension as we move forward. We also want to challenge the idea that we no longer can just design system, we have to design ecology. And this image is actually the aspen grove. The aspen grove is a very unique tree that lives in the Colorados. And the aspen grove is not just a series of individual trees. Underneath the earth, the roots are all connected to each other. It's recorded to be one of the largest and oldest living organism on earth. And we have to pay attention to language as we start to create places. As many universities moving away from this sense of placemaking and learning, and it really sort of captured by the fact that if we pay attention to language and how we create places, we can actually bring forth the world that we want to live in. So 2 years ago, a remarkable photographer named Julian Germain spent an entire year traveling around the world and created this project called Classroom Portraits. So what is so striking and common about these photographs? Right, for me as an architect and placemakers, what's remarkable for me is that we have now universalized the expectations and behaviors once we label something a classroom. Right, so these photographs demonstrate that regardless of where you're at in the world, economic conditions, religion, culture, access or no access to technology, that sense of a classroom is exactly the same everywhere on earth, just by the way we're labeling it a classroom. And the idea of place is now really critical. A few years ago, Richard Flora wrote an article called Spiky World, and I think he kind of did it just to jam Friedman, and the world is flat. And these kind of data was really telling in the fact that the world is not flat. The world is very spiky, and the world is about a sense of place. And I think that it's just so remarkable to have an institute like the ICF that's really focusing on the importance of a sense of place that galvanizes a community together. That spike that you see there on the edge, that really long spike, that's Silicon Valley. That is one single small place on Earth. So every time we go to a learning institutions, I'm sure that this questions in its spirit, it's echoing throughout the walls. How will we take on the epic challenges of our time? Right, so back to Friedman. A few weeks ago, maybe a couple months ago, he wrote this article, which is really a conversation between him and Tony Wagner at Harvard. And I find this to be so striking, which in just the first paragraph, Wagner felt that he's a translator between the world of business and the world of the learners and the educators. And what's striking for me is that this leaves the learners in a very passive mode, as if they go to school just to receive information. Well, our project in its state right now, very early on, in a very simple declaration, is that there is something, a connection between our mindset of wondering and curiosity to learning. And so our project takes on the mindset of an expedition. An expedition is something that's very different than a journey. An expedition requires a very different set of a mindset. And it tends to start out with a team, because you can't go on an expedition by yourself. You need a team of superheroes. All of us are superheroes. All of us have very unique skills, but when we come together, the combination of our skill sets makes all of us much more powerful. So our project started out with this incredible gathering, very diverse thinkers, from people who actually have started school, author, writers. Director of Bing is actually, Bing is a partner in our project. We have physicists that actually use skateboarding as a metaphor of teaching. And we have director of museums. And also, an expedition required an epic invitation to join. This is Ernest Shackleton's invitation to try to recruit 19 men to follow him to the South Pole, and over 5,000 people signed up, including women, back in the early 1900s. It's no different than 50,000 people have signed up for a one-way trip to Mars. It's quite remarkable. The lighting is not, it's too bright, but you can see that there's a small dot up there. This is Voyager 1, as it's pulling away from Earth. And this famous photograph coined by Carl Sagan is called the pale blue dot. And I like this picture better. This is by Cassini because it's under the ring of Saturn looking back at Earth with this tiny little dot. And over the summer, there was a remarkable conversation about whether Voyager 1 has left our solar system. And I think that it was really amazing because it brought up this idea of our invitation to the universe. So Andrew and Carl Sagan was given this design challenge to design the invitation for planet Earth, for humanity, for the next 1 billion years, right? It's a golden disk. And on it is welcoming the voices of Earth, whales, 25,000-year-old ancient Chinese music, Bach, Mozart, rock and roll, all represented on this disk as it leaves the solar system on its way to the universe. And what's remarkable for me is the inside human story behind this. Because when Anne designed this disk, she recorded her brain waves within the time frame of her and Carl Sagan falling in love. And what she was hoping is that some ancient, really high-tech, smart, intelligent is actually able to convert those sounds back to the image of Carl Sagan. So with expeditions, there's always wonder, right? So here's the themes that we're just starting to work with. We're starting to uncover in this process that we're on. I'm just going to go and take you through just some of the things that we're kind of working with. Wonder and place. Can a place generate the sense of wonder? This is one of our projects in Istanbul. And what this architectural project is about, beyond the fact that it's trying to create the model school for Turkey, it's really asking some very fundamental questions about why do 80% of our girls drop out of 8th grade? That's a much larger question that we're tackling through this architectural wondering. And here at Walsh, we were engaged in a remarkable conversation about creating a different place of learning, a different place of collaboration, a different place where there is that edge effect of a learning institution mixing with communities and business leaders to find solutions to complex global challenges. And what fun for me was there was a point there where I had to discuss and debate beauty with the president. And I caught myself, why am I doing that? This guy's a philosopher. But I can't wait for this place to become real, that we can walk through this threshold and be invited to this idea of wondering. Wonder and the spark. So Adam here, he's known as the Elvis scientist. He led the Curiosity landing 2 summers ago. I think a few of us stay up till like 3 a.m. in the morning as Curiosity was landing. But the human story behind him was quite remarkable. He was actually horrible in math and science. His math teacher graduated him because they didn't want to deal with him anymore, right? And this is the 60s and 70s. Adam became a bass player. And when he got out of high school and joined a band, every time he comes home late from a gig, he would look up in the sky and wonder why the constellation Orion would appear in different places. Just that idea, the invitation to wonder, got him back into community college. And he ended up receiving a PhD in Caltech and led this remarkable, creative, innovative way in which they landed Curiosity on Mars. Wonder and mystery. So a few years ago, the astronomers that were in charge of the Hubble telescope was wondering what happens if we point Hubble at the darkest place in the universe and just left the camera lens open. Right? They have no idea what came back. The darkest place they could find in the night sky. And this is what came back. Every speck, every smudge represent a galaxy. And it's now known as the deep, ultra-deep field picture. Wondering and making meaning. This project is actually quite personal to me. I live in Batavia, right outside of Chicago, 40 miles straight west. Batavia is also the home to Fermilab. Fermilab, before CERN opened in Europe, was the largest supercollider that we have on Earth. And if you remember back in the 80s, the United States was actually in the process of building the largest supercollider, even more powerful than CERN in Texas. And the project was killed by Congress because the Cold War ended. Right? This project was a galvanization of 10,000 engineers and physicists from 85 countries. It is a humanity process. It is probably one of the most complex engineering projects ever taken up by man. And last summer, it uncovered the Higgs particle. It is the last part to the standard model that tells us why we all have mass, why we exist as matters rather than just pure energy. It is quite a remarkable feat that they actually predicted something like that and carried out an experiment that actually verified it. Wonder and humanity. So talking about access to technology, I don't know if you heard of this project, Loon by Google. It's quite extraordinary. And it's simple as a way to float balloons at the stratosphere that allows everyone on Earth to have access to the internet for free. Humanity comes in different form, and this is back to the idea of why there is this third tribe called the learners, and they are not passive. They are empowered, they connected. This is a small studio inside the Stanford D School. It is called the Intrapreneurial Design for Extreme Affordability. A few years ago, one of the projects that they took on was to try to save premature babies from dying in Nepal. And what they thought was an engineering problem of just trying to design a cheaper incubator, they actually discovered that through the design thinking process, and being on the ground and understanding culture was much more important than technology. So this is their solution. After designing a less expensive incubator, flew it to Nepal and plugged it in, and observed for 2 weeks, no babies came to the hospital because they were asking the wrong questions. The questions was not, how can we design a less expensive incubator? The question was about accessibility to hospital. Because babies were still dying in Nepal, because when a mother knows that a baby is about to die, she would not let it go. So the solution was this simple blanket that you actually heat up a bag of wax, slip it into this blanket, and by the way the blanket wraps and the material, it keeps the baby warm at 98 degrees for 24 hours. Simple technology. And what's remarkable is that even when that blanket was successful, the mothers were still not using it. Because in that culture, the mother needs to see the chest breathing. So their second version, they actually put it in a tiny little window. So why do these kids come to the D School? They get no credit, they get no diploma. They come to the D School because they're able to work with their colleagues in a team setting to take on really challenging problems right now. They can no longer wait to receive the diploma, right? They don't want to wait for an invitation or some legitimacy that now they're able to solve these complex problems. Wonder and the call to action, again. Design for America started at Northwestern. It's spreading across many other universities. And it's a simple idea that we should be able to ride a bicycle to a place within our community and use design thinking to solve problems within our own community. It is a group of students that self-organize this with one professor, and now it's becoming a network throughout the country, outside of the institution of Northwestern. Same way at RISD and Brown, a group of students come together and form a better world by design. And we're about to launch our second workshop with them in this Wonder project in a few days. But this idea that the engagement and the empowerment of the younger, this third tribe, is there for us to really capitalize on. Because they are impatient. They want to help solve the world's problem right now. And so I'm going to show you a quick video. It happens to be a commercial for Apple. But for me, it's storytelling. For me, it cuts through all of the BS out there about why education is broken. Well, education is not broken. We're at a stage right now where we need a new design, right? With all of the history in terms of how we know human being learns, there is remarkable history in which we can build upon. Wonder as force and fuel.
Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them, but the only thing you can't do is ignore them. Because they change things. They push the human race forward. And while some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do.
So our project is about storytelling. How can we uncover just an incredible set of success stories out there that's inspiring, that reinforce the fact for us that we are continue to find remarkable solutions to our challenges. Quote by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, I think the 21st century is no longer about collecting woods and about task, but it's really about preparing a mindset to really understand the immensity of the sea. Thank you.